My name is Lio Marrek. Yes. Lio. Short. Clean. Easy to shout when someone is about to do something stupid. Which at the council is every 7 seconds. I am a junior stenographer for the Galactic Accord, signed to the High Chamber of Petitions and Reasonable Diplomatic Discussion. That second part is what they call it in brochures. In reality, it is a theater with better lighting and worse honesty. I write what they say. I file it. I stamp it. I watch powerful beings pretend they are calm while their spines stiffen and their eyelids twitch. And I was there when Elder Soren Vald stood up, shook like a weathered bridge in a storm, and warned the entire galaxy that mocking humans was the last clever thing we would ever do. We laughed at him. Not because we hated him, because laughter is what the comfortable do when danger sounds like an old tale. Also because Soren had the reputation of being dramatic. I know. Calling someone dramatic in a place where ambassadors wear glowing capes and arrive with orchestras feels unfair. But Soren had a special talent. He could take a simple warning and make it sound like the universe itself was leaning in to listen. He rose from his seat on petition day, a day when the chamber is stuffed with requests, proposals, complaints, and a surprising number of marriage offers between species that do not share compatible skeletons. He did not wait for his turn. That alone made the whole hall go still. The speaker of the chamber, Lady Mirren Kale, lifted one thin brow. Her expression said, "Please be entertaining," or "Please be quiet." Soren's voice when it came was rough but clear. "Do not mistake their silence for weakness," he said. "Do not mistake their patience for surrender. The humans remember. They keep records. They keep grudges in neat little boxes labeled, dated, and stacked. When they decide to open those boxes, you will wish you had never learned their name." One ambassador actually snorted. I wrote it down as an interruption, because that is my job. I considered adding the snort's pitch, but I am not paid enough to be poetic. Mirren tapped her staff once. "Elder Vald, this chamber recognizes your age and your service. It does not recognize your right to derail proceedings." Soren's hands clenched on the rail in front of him. His knuckles went pale. "I am not derailing," he said. "I am trying to prevent a collision." "With what?" asked Ambassador Jexi Rune from the trade ring. Jexi always spoke like she was tasting each word first, making sure it was expensive enough. "With the humans? They have been quiet. Very quiet." The chamber hummed with amused agreement. Humans had entered the broader galactic stage only a few generations ago. Their first contact had been awkward. Their second had been worse. Their third involved a dispute over mining rights that ended with a human legal team politely dismantling a corporation that had existed longer than most species had written language. After that, people learned to treat them like sharp tools. Useful, fascinating, and best handled with gloves. But humans had also done something that made the galaxy feel safe. They stopped pushing. They withdrew from coalition voting. They reduced their patrol presence. They closed several border relays. They became, in the words of the gossip channels, boring. The galaxy loves boring. Boring means no one has to change dinner plan. Elder Soren did not love boring. He feared it. "I have seen them fight," he said. "Not in the glossy feeds, not in staged matches, in real war. They do not fight like us. They do not posture. They do not demand the perfect moment. They fight like beings who decided that losing is not an option, and then built an entire culture around that decision." Ambassador Koro Ven laughed out loud. Koro was a big-bodied, thick-jawed delegate from the Iron Clans, famous for breaking ceremonial tables during speeches to show strength. "Elder," he rumbled, "humans are soft. Their bodies break. They require suits to survive where we breathe. They cannot even see half the spectrum. What vengeance could they possibly bring that we have not already handled?" A ripple of approval rolled through the benches. Soren's eyes snapped to Koro. "You think vengeance is a fist," Soren said. "You think it is a blade. You think it is a fleet. You are thinking small." "Small?" Koro leaned forward, amused. "Explain, wise elder. Educate us." Soren's voice dropped. It did something to the air. I cannot explain it neatly. But everyone leaned in anyway. Even the ones still smiling. "Humans do not just attack your body," Soren said. "They attack your certainty, your supply, your trust, your pride. They will let you win 10 times as long as you learn the wrong lesson each time. Then, when you finally feel safe, they remove the floor." Lady Mirren's staff tapped again. "Elder Vald, you are entering rumor and fear. Provide evidence, or return to your seat." Soren looked around the chamber. His gaze landed on me for a brief second, like he wanted someone small and quiet to understand him. That was a poor choice. I was small and quiet, yes, but I was also surrounded by powerful fools who thought sarcasm was armor. Soren inhaled. Evidence, he said. Very well. He reached into his robe. A few guards stiffened. The chamber never liked surprises. He pulled out a thin data wafer and held it up. This is a compilation, he said, from the human archives. Now humans keep archives the way some species keep holy texts. They hoard records. They duplicate them. They store them in places that would survive the sun going out. It is unsettling. It is also impressive. Mirren narrowed her eyes. How did you obtain that? Soren's mouth twitched. By asking. That earned another wave of laughter. Of course it did. Humans do not simply hand out secrets, Jexi Rune said, smiling. Soren stared at her. They do, if you ask politely, and if they believe you are the sort of person who should be warned. That line did not land the way he wanted. It sounded to the room like a personal insult. Jexi's smile hardened. Elder, are you implying we are unworthy of warning? I am implying, Soren said, that some of you are unworthy of being trusted with it. The chamber erupted. Voices overlapped. Someone hissed. Someone clapped. But not in admiration. More like a performer being pushed off stage. Mirren rose. Elder Vald, this is your final. Then the chamber lights flickered. Once. Twice. Every head turned to the ceiling. The chamber is protected by layers of security. The lights do not flicker. Not unless something has gone wrong. Or someone very capable has decided to remind us that our safety is conditional. The air cooled. A thin shimmer passed over the central dais like a curtain of heat turned sideways. My stylus froze above my pad. Mirren's voice lowered. Security? A guard spoke into a comm, then frowned. No response. The main doors did not open. The chamber locks did not disengage. We were sealed in. That, on its own, would have caused panic in a less polished crowd. Here it caused irritation. Powerful people hate being inconvenienced more than they hate being threatened. A low voice sounded from the chamber's center. Not from any mouth, from the air. Good afternoon, Accord Chamber. The accent was human. Clear, crisp, with that strange evenness humans have when they are choosing restraint. The audience scanned the dais. Mirren stepped back. Staff raised. A figure formed in the air, first as a lattice of light, then as a stable projection. A human woman. No armor. No crown. No cape, thank the stars. Simple attire. Dark jacket. Light shirt. Hair pulled back. Eyes steady. She looked calm. That was the first truly frightening thing. I apologize for the interruption, the projection said. I will be brief. Mirren found her voice. Identify yourself. You are violating. I am Director Anya Cole, the human said. External Liaison Office. Terran Compact. Several delegates shifted. That title was not ceremonial. That was the sort of title that gets used in quiet rooms where maps are not displayed. Soren did not look surprised. He looked tired. Anya's eyes moved, scanning the chamber. Elder Soren Vald, thank you for trying. The words were gentle. That made them sharper. Mirren lifted her chin. Director Cole, this chamber did not invite you. Explain this breach. Anya nodded once like she was acknowledging a child's complaint without agreeing with it. I am here, she said, because your security systems are old and because a few of your members have been making decisions that affect our people without our consent. Koro Ven scoffed. You withdrew. You made yourselves irrelevant. Anya's gaze drifted to Koro. It was not angry. It was assessing. Like she was measuring how heavy he would be if he fell. We withdrew, Anya said. Because you asked us to stop being aggressive. Because you asked us to stop being dramatic. Because you asked us to stop making you feel small. A few delegates bristled. Anya continued, voice still steady. We listened. We reduced our presence. We stopped responding to your provocations. We stopped correcting your lies in public. Jexi Rune leaned forward. Provocations? Lies? Be specific. Anya's mouth curved slightly. Not a smile. Something flatter. Your trade ring imposed temporary restrictions on medical shipments to our outer colonies, Anya said. Your Iron Clans performed training exercises near our civilian stations. Your consortium courts began seizing Terran assets over claims that were dismissed in your own systems 30 cycles ago. The chamber went very quiet. Because those were not rumors. Those were actions. Documented. Carefully hidden under legal paint. Mirren's fingers tightened on her staff. Those matters are under review. Under review. Anya repeated. The words sounded clean, but the tone made them feel dirty. Yes. Like a foot is under review when it is on someone's throat. I saw Koro's jaw flex. Soren spoke. Finally. You came. Anya's projection turned to him. We did. Someone in the back hissed. Threat. I wrote that down too. Anya's eyes swept back across the room. I am not here to threaten you, she said. I am here to inform you. Elder Vald requested that we provide evidence. We will. The air behind her projection rippled and a series of images appeared, suspended like framed windows, battle footage. Not the glossy kind. Raw sensor captures. Human vessels moving through debris fields like they were reading invisible lines. Human infantry smaller than most species, sprinting through fire and smoke, dragging wounded allies who did not share their biology. Human engineers bleeding, laughing, welding a broken reactor back together because the alternative was everyone dying. The chamber watched in stunned silence. Anya spoke over it. You think humans are soft because we are not built like tanks. You think we are fragile because our bones break. The images shifted. Human hands typing. Human voices in meeting rooms. Human satellites deploying in perfect patterns. Human cargo ships rerouted. Networks. We are fragile, Anya said. That is why we learn to build things that are not. The images changed again. Charts. Logistics webs. Trade lanes highlighted in red. A cold feeling crawled up my spine, because I recognized some of those lanes. Not all, but enough to understand. The galaxy's comfort runs on routes. On schedules. On trust in the idea that fuel arrives. Food arrives. Medicine arrives. Parts arrives. Interrupt that, and even the strongest species starts to tremble. Korovan lifted his chin, trying to reclaim his stage. So you want concessions. You want payment. You want us to kneel. Anya looked at him for a long moment. Then she spoke and her voice sharpened just a little. We do not want you to kneel, she said. We want you to stop. Jaxi Rune's voice came out thin. Or what? A soft exhale from Anya. Almost amusement. Or you will learn what Elder Vald meant when he said we remove the floor, she said. Miran stepped forward, regaining the speaker's authority like a cloak. Director Cole, you are making demands under unlawful intrusion. The Accord will not be coerced. Anya nodded. Understood. The windows behind her shifted again. This time the visuals were not war. They were records, contracts, signatures, names, and then one by one a list of familiar companies and guilds lit up with a red mark beside them. My throat went dry, because those marks were not targets, they were dependencies. Anya spoke softly. We have already begun the separation. Quietly, carefully. We have been moving our supply chains away from yours. We have been building alternatives. We have been making sure that when your systems fail, ours do not fall with them. Miran's voice cracked, just slightly. That would destabilize the entire region. Yes, Anya said. It would. A pause, then, with the calm of someone reading a weather report, she added, that is why you should have stopped earlier. Soren's shoulders sagged. He looked older than he had 10 minutes ago. Koroven's voice came out low. You cannot punish the whole galaxy because a few factions push too far. Anna's gaze flicked to him. We are not punishing the whole galaxy. We are removing ourselves from a system that decided our suffering was a convenient lever. Jaxi Rune leaned back, eyes narrowed. You are bluffing. Humans love drama. This is a performance. Anya's projection turned to Jaxi fully. No, she said. This is what restraint looks like. The chamber lights flickered again. This time, the flicker felt intentional. Like a tap on glass. A message appeared above the dais in clean human script, translated instantly into our glyphs. Notice of suspension. Terran Compact trade access, ring sector 9. Jaxi Rune's face lost color. She opened her mouth, then closed it, because for the first time in her career, she did not have a word expensive enough to fix the situation. Miran's staff clattered against the floor. She recovered quickly, but I heard the sound. Everyone did. Anya spoke again, voice still measured. The suspension is temporary. It will be lifted when the restrictions on our medical shipments are lifted. Not after. Not during review. Miran swallowed. We can negotiate. Anya cut in. Not loud but firm. We will not negotiate for the right to receive medicine. Silence, the kind of silence that feels heavy. Then Anya turned her attention to Elder Soren. Elder Vald, she said. You did what you could. The rest is on them. Soren's voice was rough. They will call you monsters. Anya's eyes softened for the first time. They already do, she said. We have learned to live with it. The projection began to fade slightly like mist thinning. But before she disappeared, Anya left one final line, and it landed like a blade laid gently on a table. You mocked the warning, she said. Now you get the lesson. The projection vanished. The chamber locks released with a soft click. As if nothing had happened. Airflow returned to normal. Security feeds flickered back online. And a room full of powerful beings sat very still, staring at one another, trying to decide who would speak first. I did not move. My stylus hovered above my pad, trembling. Because I understood something then. Something that made my sarcasm die quietly in my chest. This was not the attack. This was the polite knock. Elder Soren sank into his seat. Eyes closed. Lady Murren's voice came out thin. Proceedings will recess. No one argued. No one laughed. Ambassador Koro Ven stood, and for the first time I had ever seen him, he looked uncertain. Not frightened. But uncertain. As delegates filed out, whispers started. Quick, sharp, panicked whispers. Who did they cut off? How far does this go? Can we force them? Can we pressure them? Can we blame someone else? I stayed behind, gathering my notes. My hands were clumsy. Elder Soren lingered too. He watched the empty dais like it had betrayed him. I approached him. I do not know why. Maybe because he had looked at me earlier. Maybe because, in that moment, he was the only one who seemed honest. Elder, I said softly. You knew they would come. He opened his eyes. They said they would, he replied. I swallowed. Why warn us? If they were already separated. Soren let out a slow breath. Because, he said, humans are strange. They do not enjoy vengeance the way you think. They do not crave it like a feast. He looked at the door where the others had fled. They want to be able to say they tried, he continued. They want the record to show they offered a chance to stop. I frowned. So this is still mercy. Soren's mouth twisted. Something between sadness and grim amusement. Yes, he said. This is mercy. He leaned closer, voice dropping. And if this is mercy, he whispered. Imagine what comes after the galaxy refuses it. My stomach tightened. I wanted to laugh because that is what I do when I am nervous, but nothing came out, because outside the chamber, far beyond the polished walls and ceremonial flags, systems were already shifting, routes already changing, contracts already snapping like old bones, and the galaxy, so proud of its power, had just learned something humiliating. Humans did not need to conquer us with fleets. They only needed to stop holding us up. If you have never watched an empire realize it has been living on borrowed balance, I envy you. It is not cinematic. Not at first. There is no grand explosion. No dramatic fleet emerging from hyperspace with horns blaring and flags waving. It starts with paperwork, with polite delays, with temporary outages, with shipping manifests that suddenly do not reconcile, with fuel prices that climb like frightened animals. Then the blame begins, and the galaxy, as a proud and deeply childish collective, does what it always does when it trips over its own feet. It looks for someone to kick. 3 days after Director Anya Cole's projection vanished from the Accord chamber, I was reassigned, not promoted, not honored, reassigned. The official reason was clerical redistribution to support emergency continuity. The real reason was obvious. Someone needed bodies to copy, file, and track the growing flood of crisis memos, and I was already trained to sit still while powerful people lied. So there I was, in the lower rings of the Accord complex, surrounded by rattling servers and stale air, watching a live feed of the trade ring delegation shouting at one another as their sector's commerce began to stall. Ambassador Jexi Rune did not look expensive anymore. She looked exhausted. Her skin had taken on that dull, dried-out tone that comes from too little sleep and too many frantic stimulants. She slammed a datapad onto the desk. They cannot do this. They cannot simply cut us off from Terran transit relays. Her assistant, a thin-faced aide named Vero, cleared his throat. Director Cole's notice specified Ring Sector 9 suspension until our medical restrictions are lifted. Jexi hissed. Those restrictions were leverage. Varro tried. Gently. Yes. That seems to be the point. Jexi's glare could have peeled paint. Meanwhile, elsewhere, the Iron Clans were discovering that training exercises near civilian stations have consequences when the species you are harassing controls a large portion of your alloy refinement contracts. Koro Ven sent 3 threats in one day. All 3 were returned. Not rejected. Returned. Like unread mail. The Terran Compact did not argue. They did not insult. They did not debate in public. They simply stopped answering. And when a system built on negotiation loses the attention of one of its pillars, the whole structure starts to tilt. I tried to keep my head down. That lasted exactly 1 week. On the 7th day, I received a private summons. Not from my supervisor, from Elder Soren Vald. I stared at the authorization stamp 3 times to make sure it was not a forgery. Then I stared a 4th time because my brain likes to be slow when my life might become interesting in the worst way. I went. Soren's quarters were modest, by council standards. He had no ornamental guards outside his door, no loud assistants, no scented smoke curling from ceremonial bowls, just a quiet room, a table, and an elderly man who looked like he had been losing sleep long before the rest of us caught up. He gestured for me to sit. I did. He poured a bitter drink into 2 cups. The scent hit my nose like regret. I took it anyway. You are Lio Marrek, he said. Yes, Elder. You recorded the session. Yes. Soren nodded slowly. Then you are one of the few who has the exact wording. I blinked. Most delegates have copies. Soren's eyes tightened. Most delegates have edited copies. Of course. It always comes down to who controls the record. Soren leaned forward. Tell me, Lio. What did you hear? Beneath the words, I hesitated. The safe answer was nothing. The smart answer was whatever he wanted to hear. The honest answer was the one that would get me killed fastest. So, naturally, I chose the honest one. I said quietly that humans weren't warning us about what they might do. They were warning us about what they had already started. Soren's mouth twitched. Good, he exhaled. Long and slow. They will not stop at trade, he said. Not if the galaxy continues to treat them like a convenient tool. I swallowed. What do they want? Soren's gaze drifted to a shelf lined with old data slates. What they always wanted, he said. To be left alive. To be treated like a people, not a resource. To have boundaries that mean something. That sounded almost reasonable, which meant the galaxy would handle it poorly. Soren tapped the table once. There is another meeting. Not public. A council of reaction. My stomach tightened. Reaction. Soren's eyes hardened. They want to force the humans back into compliance. They want to make an example. My throat went dry. How? Soren's voice dropped. By striking a Terran outer relay. One of the small ones. Civilian heavy. They believe humans will rush in, angry, and then they can frame the compact as unstable and dangerous. I stared at him. Who? I asked. Soren's jaw clenched. A coalition of factions. Trade ring extremists. Iron Clan pride lords. And a few quiet supporters who will pretend they were shocked afterward. That last part was spoken with such contempt that I felt it in my teeth. I set my cup down carefully because my hands had started shaking. Elder, I said, why are you telling me? Soren looked at me as if I had asked why water falls. Because, he said, I need a witness who is not a politician. I need the record to survive what comes next. My stomach flipped. You want me to record an illegal meeting? Soren's eyes held mine. I want you to record the moment the galaxy decides to become the villain in its own story. I laughed once, sharp and humorless. That sounds like a terrible career move. Soren's mouth twitched again. Yes, he stood. Come. I followed him through a side corridor I did not know existed. That alone was a problem. The Accord complex does not have unknown corridors unless someone paid a great deal to keep them unknown. We reached a small observation room overlooking a private chamber. The glass was one way. I could see them. They could not see me. Inside sat 12 delegates. Lady Mirren Kale was there, rigid and pale. Ambassador Jexi Rune was there, eyes bright with contained fury. Ambassador Coro Ven was there, arms folded, jaw set like stone. Others too. Names I recognized from memos and scandals and whispered conversations. People who smiled in public and sharpened knives in private. The figure at the center spoke. Terran Compact control of transit relays has become a destabilizing force, he said. I recognized him. Counselor Bren Hale. A legal strategist with the personality of a locked door, he continued. Our options are limited. They are not responding to standard negotiation. Therefore, we must compel engagement. Jexi leaned forward. We strike a minor relay. We blame pirates. We offer assistance. Humans will show up. Coro's lips curled. And when they do, we show the galaxy their true nature. Mirren's voice was quiet, brittle. This is dangerous. Bren Hale's eyes narrowed. So is letting them dictate economic flow. One delegate, a thin-limbed envoy named Siva, asked, what about the civilian casualties? Jexi's smile returned. Small and cruel. We will keep casualties minimal. Coro rumbled. Minimal is still useful. I felt my skin crawl. Soren stood beside me, motionless. I whispered. They're going to do it. Soren's voice was flat. Yes. My mouth went dry. Can you stop them? Soren's gaze stayed on the chamber. I can try. He turned and left. I stayed, because I was a stenographer and apparently my purpose in life was to watch history trip over its own arrogance and write down the sound it makes on the way down. 2 nights later the strike happened. Relay Kestrel 12, a small Terran outpost on the edge of a trade lane mostly used for civilian traffic and medical shipments. The kind of place that exists to keep people alive, not to win wars. The official feed claimed pirates. The unofficial feed, the one that leaked through back channels within minutes, showed ironclad signatures on the weapons output. Not definitive to the casual viewer, but to anyone who reads power curves like I do, it was obvious. Humans did not broadcast anger, they broadcast silence. For 12 hours there was nothing, no statement, no threat, no dramatic speech. The galaxy exhaled. Some even congratulated themselves. See? Humans are not so scary. They are upset. Sure, but they are predictable. Then the floor vanished. It began with a message, not to the public, to the Accord leadership, to Mirren Kale, Jexi Rune, Koro Ven and 47 others. I saw it because my division handled emergency archiving, and the message arrived stamped with a priority so high it bypassed half the building's protocols. It was short, 1 sentence. We know who touched Kestrel 12. That was all. No signature. No logo. No flourish. Just that. Mirren called an emergency session. Closed. Guarded. Silent. And then for the first time in modern Accord history a Terran Compact representative entered the chamber in person, not a projection, a person. Director Anya Cole walked in with 2 aides. No weapons visible. No armor. Calm eyes. Same dark jacket. Same pulled back hair. The room was filled with leaders who suddenly remembered how to sweat. I was in the recording booth above, hands tight on my pad. Anya looked around the table. Who did it? Mirren demanded, voice strained. Anya did not answer immediately. She placed a small device on the table. A compact cube. It hummed one. I will answer, she said. After you listen. The cube projected audio. Not glamorous. Not edited. It was the private meeting. The one I had recorded. Jexi's voice. We strike a minor relay. We blame pirates. Koro's voice. Minimal is still useful. Bren Hale. We must compel engagement. Mirren's voice. Brittle. This is dangerous. Then silence. Then Anya spoke. Voice still even. We have your words, she said. We have your signatures. We have the route authorizations. We have the command relays that were used. We have the payment transfers masked through shell accounts. She paused. And we have the names of every person who believed civilians were acceptable collateral to manipulate us. Jexi's face looked like it might crack. Koro's jaw tightened, but his eyes flickered. Just once. Fear trying to hide behind pride. Mirren swallowed. Director Cole, what do you want? Anya leaned forward slightly. You will publicly identify the perpetrators, she said. You will hand them over for trial under Terran Compact law because your law has already proven it can be bought. Bren Hale snapped. Unacceptable. The Accord does not submit. Anya's eyes turned to him. Then you can explain to your people why their transit access goes dark at midnight. A cold silence spread. Mirren's voice came out hoarse. You cannot do that. Entire sectors depend on— Yes, Anya said. They do. She let that hang. Then she continued. Softer. You wanted to make an example of us. You chose a civilian relay to force our hand. Anya sat back, gaze steady. Here is the difference, she said. We do not need to strike your civilians to teach you what power looks like. Koro leaned forward. If you cut transit, you start war. Anya looked at him like he was slow. No, she said. If we cut transit, we end dependency. Jexi's voice shook. People will die. Anya's eyes did not blink. People already died at Kestrel. The room froze. And then Anya did something I did not expect. She reached into her jacket and pulled out a small folded cloth. A Terran memorial ribbon. Plain. Simple. She placed it on the table. This is the only reason you are still sitting here, she said. Because humans lost civilians, and the first instinct of many of us was to burn everything that harmed them. A pause, but we remembered something. We remembered that vengeance feels good for a moment and then, you have to live in the world you created. She looked around the room, voice still quiet. So we chose a cleaner consequence. Mirren's fingers trembled. Cleaner. Anya nodded once. You will lose the right to use our networks, she said. Your corporations will lose access to our shipyards. Your fleets will lose resupply contracts. Your trade lanes will re-raid around your ports. Your courts will find their decisions irrelevant because Terran assets will no longer sit inside your reach. She leaned forward again, tone sharpening. And you will do it to yourselves publicly, because if we do it for you, you will call it tyranny. If you do it yourselves, you will call it reform. Bren Hale's face went gray. This is humiliation. Anya's mouth twitched, almost humor. Yes, she said. It is. Koro's voice dropped. And if we refuse, Anya's gaze held his. Then tonight, she said, the floor goes away. No shouting. No dramatic flair, just a statement of physics. I felt my stomach twist, because I knew in that moment that humans had already prepared to follow through. They would not threaten unless the lever was in their hand. Mirren closed her eyes. When she opened them, something had changed. A kind of resignation. The look of someone who finally sees the edge of the cliff. What about the perpetrators? She asked. Anya's voice softened slightly. Hand them over. Jexie's head snapped up. You can't mean. Mirren's gaze cut her like a blade. Enough. Jexie's mouth opened. Closed. Opened again. Then she did what the powerful do when they realize they might be the offering. She tried to bargain. We can give you Bryn, she said quickly, and some Iron Clan officers. Koro, you can spare. Koro half rose, growling. Anya's eyes flicked between them. You still think this is a trade, she said. You still think you can buy your way out with someone else's blood. She stood. We will not accept scapegoats, she said. We will accept accountability. She turned to leave. Then she stopped at the door and looked back. One more thing, she said. Elder Soren Vald was right. You laughed at him. You mocked him. Her gaze swept the room. He tried to save you from yourselves, she said. If you ever want to rebuild trust with humans, start by listening to the ones who tell you the truth when it is unpopular. And she walked out. The room exploded into chaos after she left. Voices rose. Blame flew. Threats were tossed like stones. But it did not matter, because the decision had already been made. Not by the galaxy, by reality. Within 48 hours the Accord made a public announcement. They condemned the Kestrel 12 strike. They named the perpetrators. They claimed shock. They claimed betrayal. They claimed noble outrage. I watched, and I wrote, and I felt something close to nausea, because I had heard their private voices. I had heard their real intentions. Now I was watching them perform innocence for the masses, and yet, even through the lies, the outcome was real. Jexie Rune was removed from her position and placed under Terran custody within a day. She screamed. She argued. She tried to bribe. She tried to threaten. Humans escorted her out with quiet professionalism, like moving a dangerous object in a sealed container. Bren Hale vanished into a legal hole so deep I doubt even his own shadow could find him. Koro Van refused at first, tried to rally his clan. Then Terran Compact fuel contracts disappeared from Iron Clan supply lists. Suddenly, pride had to negotiate with hunger. He surrendered, not kneeling, not begging, but he surrendered. The galaxy did not collapse. It stumbled. Hard. Some sectors suffered. Some markets crashed. Some fleets sat idle. Some politicians lost their careers. But the galaxy learned. It learned that humans, when pushed, do not always explode outward. Sometimes they simply stop holding you up. Weeks later, I visited Elder Soren. He looked older. Yes, but lighter. Like someone who had carried a warning for too long and finally put it down. They listened, I said. Soren gave a tired laugh. They listened after the cost became personal. He sipped his bitter drink. Is that victory? I asked. Soren looked at me. Victory, he said, is when you do not have to prove you can hurt someone to be treated with respect. He leaned back, eyes distant. Humans are still learning that too, he added. They are not saints. They have anger. They have grief. They have people who wanted to answer Kestrel 12 with fire. I swallowed. Why didn't they? Soren's gaze sharpened. Because, he said softly, they are not only capable of vengeance, they are capable of restraint. He paused, and restraint, he finished, is the most frightening power of all. I left his quarters and walked through the Accord halls, past polished stone and glowing banners, past guards who suddenly looked less confident. I thought about Anya Cole's calm voice. About that single sentence, we know who touched Kestrel. I thought about how the galaxy had mocked an elder, how it had laughed, how it had assumed humans were soft, fragile, predictable, and then I smiled just a little, because sarcasm is a survival habit. Of course we mocked him. We are the galaxy. We are experts at arrogance. But now, whenever someone in the hall speaks about humans with that old dismissive tone, someone else quietly clears their throat, and the conversation changes. Because everyone remembers the day the floor almost vanished completely, and no one wants to test how far humans are willing to let it drop.